I worked for Starbucks in college, which was a great job because then I was able to call up a place in Midtown. I was like, okay, where's the theater district? Let me call one there. Hi, I want to transfer. And had no idea what I was getting into, but that was my first job in the city, was being able to transfer from Starbucks in Colorado to Starbucks in New York and have something to do. And then I retired when I got my first off-Broadway.
Probably like such a, oh my, yeah, I mean like what a, but like picking that or the obvious like server job in New York is just, I mean, they're so friendly for performers, obviously. So you're able to do your audition thing and book your first show. I know you did the illustrious Boobs the musical.
Boobs.
As well as Musical, the musical. And then, of course, but your first Broadway show was Standing By for
Anita in West Side Story. Yeah, the revival in 2009.
That's right. So let's talk about that. Like, first of all, like, we were having an interesting conversation too about like our company of our ragtime company, where the Harlem Ensemble was like, oh my God, we're never in a show with this many people of color. You know what I mean? Like we were, and it was such a different kind of vibe. Like, what was the vibe of like West Side Story on Broadway, with it being also very a racially charged show, a lot, you know, that kind of thing, and then like kind of stepping into that environment, standing by for your first time on Broadway for an iconic, principal, powerful woman. What was that? Yeah, what was that like? And just was the vibe of the company?
Well, honestly, it's harder for me to have a fuller picture of that because I came in, I had a weird situation. I came in last minute because there was an injury in the show, and I had to agree when I booked it to a week-to-week contract, which is pretty unusual.
Wow.
Yeah, so stepping into that was strange because I mean, my dressing room, I like plopped a chair outside of stage management. Which like, hi guys. You know, I learned the show on my own in the studio with the associate choreographer, and yeah, I was ready in a week, and then, you know, came into the theater. I was watching.
How long was your rehearsal process?
I mean, 5 days a week, something like that, and I would have been sloppy in a couple of places, but I was ready to go on within a week, which was really
also cool. Guys, she is one of the fastest brains. Like I'm a fast brain. She's like insane. Like she's got a brain that will take her all the way obviously to the Broadway. So yeah, she goes so fast. So you learned all of one of the most complicated shows, like dance shows, like on the face of the planet. You learned that in 5 days, ready to go on Broadway if needed. Amazing.
I did. To answer your question, Colden, I think that's how you pronounce your name. Yes, yeah. I did meet and work with Arthur on the revival, which was really cool.
Do you have a story for him? And yeah, by the way, if you guys have questions, post them in the chat. We'll be answering them the whole time. So yeah, that's a great question. Do you have any stories about Arthur at all? Any experience with him?
Mine are minimal. I mean, I mostly, for a bit, was kind of just in the back watching because the company had been together since the beginning of, you know, their out of town tryout. So I was just this new entity seeing, okay, how does everybody interact? What's the chemistry like? Okay. So I was observing bit by bit, you know, seeing him give them notes and, but in the audition room, one of the things that he really wanted to remind, like one of my notes in the adjustments was reminding of the love, like in A Boy Like That, the love that she has for Maria, that she had for Bernardo. And that was one of the adjustments in the audition room before I booked the job that he reminded me of, that really helped me to get into my body, into the love of the character, to deliver that and then book that job. But after the weird, like, I don't know if it was 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I got them through opening, and then Yaniro was okay enough to come back. Although that Saturday, I left on like a Wednesday. It was a weird scheduling situation. And then I found out that Saturday, Karen's ankle was off and Yanira ended up going in, and they were like, we almost called you. I'm like, don't tell me you almost called me. But later, I had gotten a call, maybe a month or so later. One day, I got the call. I had initially booked the Addams Family as a swing, and I had gotten a call on one day that I was going into the ensemble instead. So okay, great. I'm going to be in the ensemble of Addams Family. The next day, I got a call from West Side Story wanting me to come back, be a Shark Girl, and take over for Karen. But they would not put that in writing. I was like, cool, but they wouldn't put it in writing that I'd take over. And as of course my agent and I'm having all of these toiling thoughts in my head about, oh my gosh, this principal role on Broadway. But there was another part of, I guess you could say, my gut instinct, even though some of it seemed like, are you crazy? It's like, hey, it sucks you didn't actually get to perform it on Broadway, but one, you have the credit.
Yeah.
Two, I had the opportunity to do a brand new original Broadway show with the Addams Family.
Original cast, yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that I always wanted to be a part of, and so I chose, even though could have had the opportunity to then take over for Karen, they wouldn't put it in writing. There was no guarantee, so I chose to be a part of the original Broadway company, and since then have had the pleasure and honor to be a part of several original companies.
Well, I was just saying that decision really shaped. I feel like that decision really shaped a lot of what was to come, because I feel like a fair amount of jobs came from relationships built on the Addams Family, right? I mean, like a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, something to remember in all of the shows is even before that, heck, even in college, just the relationships that we build from the start of our career, and something I'm grateful, learning from my parents and, having good communication and treating people with kindness and respect, really gets you a long way. Heck, even though it seems like Boobs the musical, it's not like the most glorious thing ever, but it was, it was in this off-Broadway show. But I had done the out-of-town tryout of Brooklyn the musical in Denver. I was in
covered Eden.
Yeah, I covered Eden and Karen, which funny,
Yeah,
and then I covered Karen again in West Side.
Yeah.
But I had done that, and the associate choreographer of Brooklyn called Donna Drake, who was directing Boobs the musical, and was like, hey, pardon the sirens in the background, New York. She called Donna Drake to let her know, hey, there's this woman who just did Brooklyn. She's very fast at learning. And so that's how I auditioned for Boobs. It's so funny to say. I auditioned for Boobs just to shorten the title. Sounds so bizarre, but I auditioned for that and booked it the same day, and then started like 2 days later. And 3 of us were new, and we learned the show in 3 days, and then we had to be off book in 3 days and then open on the 5th. That was terrifying. But anyways, those relationships on a show that seems like, what is this show? All of those relationships, then you start to build a reputation of how well you work, the kind of respect you have. And so, yes, from even before Addams Family, and certainly from Addams Family as well, that helped to propel me into other opportunities, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, because obviously Sergio enjoyed working with you, because then you went from that. He did Sister Act, correct?
No, actually, Anthony Von Last did Sister Act, but it was still Telsey.
That's what it was. That was okay, great.
Same.
Before we because I want to talk a little bit about the journey on Addams Family, just because what a company that was, but before we do, obviously, so when I went out and I did Greece on tour, I had 5 days I was a last minute replacement, because the guy decided he didn't want to renew his contract, and they were like, oh my God, we need a replacement. So I went out and I had 5 days, no of rehearsal with no one else except the other guy replacing, who was understudying me. And it was like the pace at which that had to, and I know where my training ground, working at Disney and covering my first job at 16 was like covering 5 different parts in the Hunchback show at Disneyland. So it was like, and then them going, you just have to watch it and write it down on paper, and like, you're not gonna get any rehearsal. And it was like, what? So I know, like, kind of for me, but obviously the pace at which someone moves, and how fast their mind goes, that was something that someone said, she's fast, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh, great. So like, how much do you feel like that is important? Because I know a lot of people on Broadway who are not. There's many of the stars actually are really not fast. They take a lot of time. But how important is that, have you seen? And then like, do you have a trick that you used early on how to develop that part of your brain for people that maybe are not as fast that want to kind of develop that?
Well, I mean, part of what helped certainly some of those earlier shows was coming right out of college. My brain was a little quicker than it is even now. But yeah, just really getting in the practice of learning something new, whether it's, okay, I'm going to choose this song and work on a song a week, even if you're not performing it for anything. Just keeping your brain working. And along with, gosh, over the last, really a few years after I got into the city, I really started on a health and wellness journey and learning about, eventually learning about dorky things like the microbiome, which scientists are now actually, more people have probably maybe actually heard that word than they did even a few years ago, but learning about how our brain, it essentially is fueled on fat, good fats. And so learning about those kind of things for myself, just to fuel my body in the best possible way, along with other self-care and wellness practices. So then I feel better in my body, and therefore I'll feel better in my mind and more able to focus.
Like brain fog, that's like a thing, man. Like if you're not eating healthy and if you don't have some kind of like really healthy routine, yeah, that cloudiness, like it's amazing to see like when you are treating your body right, how much your brain will just kind of ignite.
Yeah, and even though it certainly is a trend for a lot of people, I had a blood test a couple of years ago and found out, oh, I have a sensitivity to wheat and peanuts as well. But then I did an experiment with gluten. And when I had it out of my body and then put it in again, I never noticed this before, but that week that I put it back in, it was harder for me to focus at work. I was doing the Share Show in Chicago. It was harder for me to focus. I had that brain fog you were just talking about, and my joints hurt. I was like, oh man. And it sucks socially, but I feel better. And so like learning those things, taking the time to learn those things and investigate those things, especially since our food system is not the greatest. Not the greatest. And there's so much like learning to read. I mean, it seems like, how is this related to your field? But it's important to learn about reading labels and like what crap is being put in the food, because our belly, our gut is like our second brain.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this fascinating documentary or docu-series called Broken Brain by Dr. Mark Hyman. And in it are a ton of interviews with various people talking about how they realized the realizations of certain foods and things, that there's a gut and brain correlation, and how it can mess with our moods and all sorts of things. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of a roundabout discussion on like health and wellness. It's important. Really truly so important.
Can help you book a Broadway show, ladies and gentlemen. So let's talk about Addams Family. So Alena, for those that are familiar with the show, was one of the ancestors, was the saloon girl, and had one of my favorite opening coming out of the crypt moments. Her like broken sense of like the style was so great coming up out of the ground. I got to see her and my friend Krista in it on Broadway, and it was so much fun. But what a crazy dynamic, because there was no secret. There were so many things that were coming out of that show about how BB and Nathan like got along or didn't get along, and they're part of the rehearsal process. And like you had like other legends within that, like where you had Carolee Carmello and
Terry Mann.
Terry Mann, hello. And you had like hello, yeah, Kevin Chamberlain and Jackie Hoffman. I mean, literally, I was like, oh my God, it's just like all-star cast with these like two like celebrity type stars, and then up and coming Krista Rodriguez. I mean, like you had all this stuff, and then like this incredible Broadway ensemble. What was that like? Because I know the show changed drastically, like probably more than many shows even change from their inception to their opening, and then changed drastically again for the national tour. It was always felt like something that they were continually working on, trying to figure out. So could you just talk about like, I feel like you created a lot of Broadway musicals, but I feel like that one, I would imagine, had the most interesting journey, because you had not only like the creatives who all had like the hand in the pot, and then you had, I'm sure, producers that had the hand in the pot, but then you had celebrities who undoubtedly had their hand in the pot or all their limbs in the pot. I mean, who knows? But how was that? I'm sure you just feel totally helpless and along for the ride because you have no hand in the pot. You're like, tell me where I'm going and what I'm wearing, and I'll be there as long as my check clears. But I mean, like, tell me about what that was like creating that show.
It was definitely a whirlwind. And even though technically West Side Story was my Broadway debut, because that was such a weird week to week situation and so short, Addams Family felt like my Broadway debut.
Right.
You know, it was something I got to start from the beginning. And I was in it for as long as I thankfully needed to be until I ended up going to the next show. But yeah, there were a lot of personalities, and it was a fascinating journey because Julian and Phelim, our British directing team for the out of town Chicago run, they came from a very different background, and some of the processes were just was like doing experimental theater on a $5 million budget or whatever our budget was. I don't even remember at this point, but like the
definitely more than $5 million. I'll let you know.
Okay, so yeah, and then on a many $1 million budget, like some of our processes, which really helped to root the show in love, but there were some growing pains for sure. There was one of the first things we did was we sat down, we recorded, like did an audio recording of everybody reading their lines for the first time, and we were instructed to do anything without emotion. And then after a break, we got up. I don't even remember what this exercise was called. But then we got up and were to, if you had lines, mouth the lines to what you recorded before and basically like experiment with where you were moving. So you're like, hey, ancestors, you're dead. They weren't sure exactly how they were going to integrate everything together. But if there's a scene where you feel like your ancestor is connected to somebody, float in, try some things. Yeah, so we're just like all like, what? But the cool thing about that is that everyone was welcome. So even our swings and understudies, which, usually you're just on the sidelines watching. So I really appreciate having come from that. I so appreciate that. Everyone was welcome to explore. So it was weird. Everyone's like, what are we doing? This is not usual.
Right.
But it did inform some moments in the show. There were a couple times where like myself and another ensemble member really like felt drawn to float in and direct Wednesday a certain way. Mm-hmm. And so, some of that happened, was implemented in the show later, but that was certainly a very unusual for that kind of process exercise. And at some point, a couple of the more prominent personalities were like, come on, we've got to get moving with this. But it was really cool that they had the courage to explore on that level, to really get rooted in the love and connect us in a unique way. Because we certainly, whether you liked that exercise or not, it was a memory that was connective as a cast. And they did other open space. Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about this in a while, but they had a couple of additional like hours set aside throughout that process to just connect as people, which is not something, it's usually something you need to do on your own time if you get to do that. Right. So that really rooted the story in love. But then there were things that, with the varying personalities that needed to get moving for Broadway. So they brought in Jerry Zaks for Broadway, and things completely changed. We certainly ran out of time for the amount of changes that wanted to be implemented. So that was, I think we have a question with this. Did you go to Chicago? Yes, I was in Chicago with the Addams Family along with Broadway. So yeah, I was from so I'm talking about the start of the Chicago process with those exercises. And then when we came to Broadway, Jerry Zaks came in. He's very good at like, okay, this is what I want, this. So we were able to get things together very quickly, but again, we did lose some time, which is why when things went on tour, I don't even know what version is on tour, because people will talk to me about that. I'm like, what is that song? oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I can tell you all about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or at least the octopus and things that aren't, in the arms of a squid, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, that's all gone. Yeah.
And that was amazing too, because we actually had puppetry games where
Right.
we had to okay, we have paper, but we're going to learn to move. Okay, we're creating some creature with these paper, and it's like you're getting to do these experimental improv games with puppetry and such, which also, even though some of that got cut later, helped to bring us together as a cast and create, at least for the Chicago and Broadway productions, the aliveness of all of the puppets involved. So that
Yeah.
was certainly a whole incredible, unique experience that cannot be reproduced.
Well, no, it's so funny. I remember going backstage and I was talking with you and Krista, and I remember meeting Jackie Hoffman, who's exactly, when you meet Jackie Hoffman, you're like, yep, that's exactly what I would expect. Like, just like, hi, how are you? All right, nice to meet you. Okay, great. And you're just like, yep, that's exactly who I would expect. And then Kevin Chamberlain, exactly the same thing, just like, hey, how are you? Give me a hug. Like, okay, I don't know you. This is great. Like, so nice, so sweet. And then Nathan Lane, who was just like, side eye you as he's on his way to his PT appointment, just kind of like, hi, and then walk away. So yeah, like, what was it? Did it feel like when it came to the principals in the ensemble and everybody, did it feel like a very a family type thing, or did it feel kind of like, I mean, you were in a show with some, like I said, mega people. Was it just kind of everybody in their own corners, or how was
No,
that?
I mean, we certainly had our moments across, like, all together. And even with some of the Broadway Cares efforts, Nathan and BB came and were a part of it. Yeah, so it's, interspersed moments for sure.
That's cool.
And for anybody because a couple people have kind of popped in, FYI, just a little reminder, Jason had a film project that was unexpected and got sent home on a flight that got a little delayed. So we're hoping he'll pop in at some point, but he's stuck on a plane right now. But yes, for work. Yeah. And I can't wait to hear about all of, I know they were like tested for COVID every day and such, but anyway, so for the couple of people who are popping in, that's what we're waiting for our boy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and for anyone who, speaking of Adams, like who the ancestors have had a afterlife continued out here in Southern California. I love every single time Alena sees us post a Scaroler photo. She's like, "Oh my God, that's my costume!" But yeah, it's been a lot of fun because they live on not only through the rentals, but yeah, I have to walk you through the show's very different, very the same but very different, and I feel like they finally got all the things they probably didn't have time to do when you said as you like ran out of time. That's kind of like, I feel like what they got to do for the tour. And even then there was still some things where you're like, oh, ran out of time. But yeah, it was a great show. So then after that during that you booked Sister Act.
Yes.
Yeah. Original company. What was, tell me a little bit about, encapsulate that experience. Cause I remember I saw you in the show. And to be really honest, I went with my arms crossed because I was like, this isn't the music from the movie. And I was just like, I wanted that, And I was just, it was one of those moments. And then by the end, I was watching you and Danny Stiles and another friend of mine. And I was just like, literally live in that finale and all your glistening, like white nun crazy sparkly costumes, and I started weeping because I was like, this is so joyous, this is so much fun, and I totally forgot about the score was great. So was that as joyous, like creating that show? And then working with Whoopi Goldberg, how was that?
Yes, it was an absolute joy, such a joy.
And tell people what you did in the show.
What'd you say?
Tell people like who what your track was for anyone that knows the show.
Yeah, so anybody who knows the show, I was the original Tina. So there was Tina and Michelle, Dolores as backup singer-dancers, and also one of the nuns, of course. And not that anybody would know, but she was born from Sister Act, lives on, and when there still was a Broadway yearbook, I don't think it exists anymore, is listed as our mascot. Also, T.C. Jenkins, who was one of the bums, and I could be that guy, Sweaty Eddie's
Yeah.
So she now has an Instagram page, finally, after years of people being like, come on. So, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Tina, a nun, and T.C. Jenkins.
Love it, love it, love it. What was working with Whoopi like?
Well, she just popped in here and there. So, certainly she was one of our executive producers, but she would come in and, give us some chats and little pep talks here and there. But mostly, we were just getting down to work, putting everything together with the creative team, our directors and choreographers.
And they had kind of already figured out, like, because they had done London prior, so they had kind of, with Whoopi, so they'd kind of figured out, I'm sure, much of what they wanted to do in New York already. Have you heard that they're rewriting it, and she was gonna, I don't know if she ended up doing it or not because of COVID, I don't remember timing, but she was gonna step into the part again.
I saw that.
I mean, like, I would pay all the money. I would pay
fun to watch.
All the money. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. But I have to say that was just a joy for me because I got to, well, one, it was really cool to have a few lines and have my voice heard on a Broadway stage, in a feature, but also getting to be be a bit sassy and such, and then also getting to use different parts of my personality, also be kind of implement the sweet and awkward parts. It was just so fun to do. And that cast, the whole company really was a joy. Just from, you'd walk down all of the floors of the dressing rooms and all of that, and you just hear laughter and foolishness. And we liked to play and be silly, and yeah, that was such a great group.
Yeah, and at a all Broadway theaters are iconic in their own right, but you were at a very iconic Broadway house. I mean,
Broadway theater, yeah.
The Broadway theater, yeah, pretty amazing. So after Sister Act, what happened?
After Sister Act, I took a conscious break and did what I tell a lot of the students who would come to Q&As, which is I usually say, hey, don't let musical theater be the only thing in your life. You have to go and explore your interests and your desires as a person, because, well, one, that's good for personal development, and two, it's going to make you more interesting on stage the more you learn about yourself, because then the more you'll be able to connect with a variety of characters from whatever you do to explore your life. So I did that for a little bit. And also in the meantime, since I was consciously choosing not to audition for anything long-term, a friend of mine who worked with the USO asked me if I could help with our holiday season. So I said yes, and that became 5 years on and off of going on short-term gigs and, learning an arsenal of material, and then going on, okay, you're going on a classic gig or a contemporary gig. So that was really beautiful. And so I traveled a lot in those 5 years, and then ended up doing some regional shows in between there. And then
finally got to do Anita, right?
What's that?
You finally got to do Anita, right?
Yes, yeah. In 2014, years later, when my joints were starting to feel a little different, I actually got to perform Anita, which was an absolute joy and honor. So
yeah,
that was awesome to actually get to do it and do it in my way. And although then, because they had, since Karen wasn't as much of a technical dancer, they had modified some of America, but they did not modify it for our show. I was like, oh my God. I was like, on fire. And I'd get off stage and be like, I'm so grateful I got to perform at least, in one period of my life.
Amen.
Yeah, so that, and then I did, gosh, there's probably something else I'm missing, but then I ended up doing Ever After, which is another original musical. And we did that at Paper Mill Playhouse. Then I went on tour with Pippin the Musical and had the pleasure of, I got to go on for I covered the leading player, and I got to go on for leading player 7 times, which was really fantastic too. We don't have a lot of women in those roles that are strong. And, the leading player is a ringmaster of sorts, and getting to be
kind of almost like a villain in a way, but
yeah, but there's this power. So get to experience that as a woman on stage was really awesome. And I learned a new skill, that trapeze little bit, with no safety net. So that was fun. slightly
So what
terrifying.
was the safety plan for the lack of safety net? Because you know there had to be one. Like, was there some big strong man that was ready to catch you? No?
Yes. There's at some point a staircase with an acrobat on top going across. Yeah, no, you need to be
Don't
on your
fuck up.
stuff and on your strength. There was
Yeah.
one show where I had gotten in Amsterdam where I'd gotten maybe 3 hours of sleep because I was going through a breakup, so there's like a lot of nights crying and things. So I'd gotten like 3 hours of sleep, and then you're on. I'm like, oh my god. I'm pretty sure that was the day where I'm a little less flexible on my left side, and that's one that needs to wrap around before you do the split thing, and it like missed it, and I'm like, no. And I had to like gather all of the muscles in my abdomen and reach my leg and wrap it around the thing. So that was like what felt like probably like 20 seconds was probably like 2 seconds of minor panic, and then, and getting it done. Yeah, but that was super awesome. And then after that, I went and did the out of town tryout for the prom in Atlanta, which eventually came to Broadway. Although I ended up at that point being in, which was my first time back in Broadway in years, the Cher Show, which was from 2018. We did our Chicago out of town tryout and through Broadway, of course. And we closed last year, almost
Around the
a year
time.
ago.
Yeah. You're Ever After, that's one. First of all, I love that movie. Angelica Houston, her performance, and that everybody actually in that movie, even Drew Barrymore's accent, it's all amazing. But yeah, so hearing that was going to be a Broadway show, or hope to be a Broadway show, and that's been like the little engine that hasn't quite gotten there yet, because it had its paper mill journey, went away for a minute, and then went to, I think, the Atlanta Lyric, where they did it again recently with, because Rachel York was the Baroness in that. Yeah.
Which I understudied. So I was the understudy for Christine Ebersol.
Oh, yeah.
I never went on. Yes, I had these children when I was 1 or 2.
You have the essence. You got the essence, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, it's so funny that the people that I feel like that I heard have written the score, that feels like a show that would be written by like Flaherty and Ahrens or something, like the way that you would expect that score to kind of feel. But I haven't heard a moment of Ever After, but the I think it's 2 women, right, that are writing the score. And everything I know of their work is so not like what it would feel like what that show would in my head feel like. So how did, like, like creating another show that hasn't seen its day on Broadway yet, what did you kind of feel like, what was the response to the show, and like what did you feel like maybe were some of the issues?
Well, first of all, Marcy Heisler and Zena Goldrick write such beautiful music, and it was
cool.
such a pleasure to sing that music.
Cool.
It's just like it's a breath of fresh air. And I I do a lot of contemporary singing and use my classical voice less, but it is a pleasure to get to go a little bit back and forth. And so singing that music was just like velvety glory.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a fun process. It takes so many years, and they've spent so many years on, to create a new musical. And sometimes it's a little rough to be objective from the inside. And so I don't know that I have a really great opinion of the parts that needed to be fixed. And at this point, it's been about 5 years since I've really thought about it. But sometimes just things that need to be tweaked, or dialogue or whatnot. I don't know. But I had such a blast getting.
Yeah, it looked stunning, and I eagerly await for it to continue making its journey. And then of course the prom, amazing that you had the option of like go with this show or I go to this show, which is so cool. And Cher Show. So another icon that you're also a cover for 2 of the Chers, right?
Yep.
2 of the older 2.
Middle and older. Mm-hmm.
Middle and older. So covering Stephanie Block and and then working with Cher. Oh my God, I met her once. I met her once and shook her hand, and it was like she was so. It was one of those things where I was like, "Oh my god, I'm about to meet Cher. What do you say?" And I was just like, "You're so awesome." That's all I said. I'm not even like a mega fan or anything. I think she is awesome though, and her hand was so cold and like limp, and I was just like, "Oh." I was like, you have like zero. She probably puts forth like she has to put so much energy out. You know what I mean? So it was like just meeting like the most feeble little person, even though she's not that at all, because it was just like the tiniest, most tiny little hands. Anyway, how is meeting her, working with her, like, what was that kind of journey like as well? And like the costumes, I remember going backstage with you in that show and seeing no space, costumes that were the size of a bus
that were hanging in the rafters.
In the rafters. Yeah. I mean, like just no space. It felt like that show had been shoehorned into this theater. So yeah, a little bit about that show.
Yeah, I started the lab in the fall of 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And when we did the performance, I can't remember if we added performance, but I think she came to like the last one. And we were told that, okay, come at this time so you can meet Cher. And so she came in and we all end up huddling around, and I can't remember the exact words, but something like, usually with my people, we'll, get in a group and hold hands, but I don't really know you. So, but I guess I'm supposed to say some inspirational words. Oh my gosh, I have to think for a second of what she said because it was so funny. I'm supposed to say something inspirational. Don't make a fool out of yourself. Just be good. She said something like that. Don't make a fool of yourself. Just be good. I think I remember it was something like that. I might be messing it up a little bit, but I remember we were all just kind of like, oh, okay.
I feel so inspired.
I mean, we all laughed, It's like, okay, she's like, what was I supposed to say? And so that was the first interaction. And then the next interaction that we had, because so some of our leading ladies had, they had touch bases with her, of course, but as an understudy or standby, might have gotten some time, but I didn't. Until she came to see us, actually like 3 times in a row. We were surprised in Chicago, which we weren't expecting, and it completely interrupted. We're at the top of Act 2, I remember, and I don't know if I think she just wasn't noticed at first, but then for the second act, we're about to start and speak, but people have noticed Cher, and they're going insane. So we're just standing there waiting to start our courtier, opening Act 2 number. Like, okay. And then we continued on and did the show and got to meet with her downstairs. And she let us know that this time around she didn't want to shoot her eyes out. So that was good. From the lab compared to, the changes that had been made for Chicago. Listen, she's how you expect her to be on interviews or whatever. She's honest. She's not going to be, she didn't, even in interviews, she didn't BS the audience. She's like, these things are great. There's some things that need to change.
Yeah.
And so she's certainly very real and what you'd expect. And sometimes you're like, oh, you said that.
Was she happy about the end result by the time you got to Broadway?
Yeah, she was moved. I think it, however, she did keep saying, I'd never recommend making a story of your life. Just because it's because we really focused it in a lot more. Like in Chicago, I mean, it was a creative team of men. And in Chicago, you could see that. It's like, this is filtered from a man's perspective. It's all about the men in her life. And for Broadway, they really did a great job filtering it in through her experiences, the way she overcame so many obstacles and hardships in her life.
Did they add women to the team, or were they
no,
just
but
noted?
they listened to their women.
Great.
And some of the opinions that were coming forth and the desires of how they thought it could be stronger. So that was beautiful. So she had expressed, that it was really hard. There was maybe one of the first times she came to see us on Broadway. At some point she left and people were like, Cher stormed out and hated it. No, actually, she came back the next day. She's like, I'm so sorry I had to leave. I wouldn't recommend creating Story of Your Life because it was really hard for her to rewatch. and even the men, the
Oh
men
wow.
in particular, like Jared as Sonny and Matthew as Greg and such, like the men were, she said it was really eerie to watch them because it was like she was reliving these really painful moments. So while
Yeah.
I think that she appreciated it, it was very hard for her to watch.
Greg Sonny, right? He
Uh,
was
oh,
amazing.
Jared is, yeah, Jared was
Jared.
Sonny. Matthew played Greg Allman.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
Sonny was unbelievable. Quick story about seeing that show on Broadway. I saw it with Jeanette and then a friend of mine who shall remain nameless, Alan. He was like, dude, we're about to see Cher on Broadway. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I've never even seen like her concert. Like, and we get to see her in this tiny, small theater. And I was like, oh, you dear sweet man. We're seeing the musical of her life, of which she's not in it. It's about her. And he was like, lights go down. Like, that's literally like how he learned it. He's like, oh, like he was ready to see Cher in.
I think some people were. Some people were.
That's so funny to me. I'm like, really? I guess because Sting had been on Broadway, or whatever. I'm like, okay, I guess maybe. But anyway, I thought that was really funny. So flash forward to you now. We're in what I kind of want to talk about before we. And by the way, you and I have had to improv this whole thing because Jason couldn't join us, and we're doing great.
Yeah, but I missed him. Jason is amazing, and his dad is here. There's amazing stories. Yeah.
Oh my God, I know, and yeah, I
have another one.
Yeah, we will for sure. But so you were doing yes, so you were doing Dr. Oh my God, not Dr. Doolittle, Mrs. Doubtfire. Hello.
Yes.
Not one and the same at all. Mrs. Doubtfire. So can you talk to us about that particular movie? When I heard this long before it had been cast, anything, there's certain movies where I get almost like a little, like they're gonna try to do that. I was like, because how do you not be Robin Williams, and how do you recreate that and not just him, but the whole cast? I mean, Sally Field is unbelievable, and like, how do you recapture that and without imitating that? Do you know what I mean? And how do you find that magic? And then, so I'd love to find out what that process has been like, because you closed, not closed, but I mean, you
we're on pause.
had to pause, I guess we'll say. Major long pause.
Yeah, hugely long pause. Well, we started, let's see, I think there was one might have been a previous iteration, but I did, in the midst of Cher, last May, I was asked to come and be a part of the reading. And it's one of the few readings that afterwards, I was filled with so much joy. It was so good. It's like, I want to be a part of this. And I'm so grateful that I am able to be a part of it, because just the dialogue, the music, gosh, it's just all so good. And while there's going to need to be tweaks and, things that we figure out when we are able to get back into the process, the Rob McClure does such an incredible job honoring the things that you really want, like those little gems and the things that we remember, those key parts. He honors them so beautifully, but then also brings himself. He's not going to, nobody can be Robin Williams, but oh my God, Rob McClure is fantastic. My goodness, like, talk about, yes, please, Tony Award. The amount of talent that man has, and the amount of joy and love, that really.
And then he tap dances. You're like, what?
Yeah, he taps, he juggles, he rides like tricycles and stuff. Who knows what will stay and go, and that really trickles down from the top. Like, his genuinely loving attitude and concern and care, and the things that he thinks about, like, oh, hey, is this going to be okay for you? Like, I'm fine. I'm supporting the leading man. So that really is a beautiful energy, one, in honoring the part, but also really informing the love within the cast. And there's just so many different styles of music in the show that I think, and of course, again, it's hard not to be have my own things that I attach to within a show, but I really think work well together, but honor different, like the Teenagers has. There's this song that reminds me kind of like an Avril Lavigne feel that our character, like the older character kid Lydia, she sings. And yeah, there's just some really, really fun stuff. And our writers, who is the same writing team as Something Rotten, Wayne and Carrie Kirkpatrick, and John, oh my gosh, John, why am I just now forgetting your name?
You're fired. No.
What's that? Fired. I know, fired. Oh my gosh, John. I just forgot your name. They're hysterical. And they're also really kind and considerate. And, if you have an idea, whether or not it gets implemented, who knows? Same with Jerry, but they'll listen.
Yeah.
And it's a really, really great team. And
They've updated because I know, I happen to know they've updated it because there's a clip of one of the previews online where I was watching, and I was like, I know my friend Alena's in this. Where is she? Where is she? And then all of a sudden out comes Paula Deen. And I was like, that's Alena as Paula Deen.
That's Chef Ann.
Well, whatever. She's Paula Deen. So I died laughing. I was like, oh my God. So obviously you've updated it from like the 1990s to modern day, which is, great. I'm sure that's going to infuse a whole extra little bit of comedy with, modern technology, kind of infused into this gem of a story. But we rewatched the film recently, and it's just, my God, what a beautiful story of family, and how not everyone's family is that closing monologue, which I hope is still is a part of the show, is just like, it's everything. I mean, and just showing how every family is different and every family is beautiful. And yeah, it's pretty great. So I am excited to see the journey that show will take when we all get to come back to work.
Same. It's going to be one that I think that we're really going to need, that message of love and family.
Yeah.
As long as there is love. If you haven't seen the musical project we put together, we took the finale, our Seattle finale version.
Oh, cool.
Zoom style, put that up online. So that's.
Oh, I have to check that out. Yeah.
As long as there is love.
How long into the preview process on Broadway were you before it
We had
closed?
done 3 previews. We had just finished our rehearsal day for the 4th while all this stuff was happening. And we're like, our stage manager at some point was like, you guys, just so you know, we're working on this scene, if you're checking your social media, you'll probably start to see some things. We're going to have a meeting, a company meeting at such and such time. And then we started seeing things about things getting shut down and what's going on and the virus, this and that. And we're like, okay, this seems weird. Okay. And then we found out what was happening. There's this virus. You're going to need to collect your things and get out for a month, which what we thought was going to be a month. And now, with the Broadway League of Producers has estimated, January. But there's certainly rumor. We have no idea. Information is changing, on a daily basis. But some people think, okay, yeah, maybe January for some spring stuff. Some people are thinking June or next September. Who knows? But in the meantime, we're having our every few 3 weeks and 3 days, we get together. Whoever is available and wants to get together, we'll get together and share what's going on and update. And our choreographer was on the last one, being like, "Okay, Lauren Latara, okay, make sure you're doing a dance class every week." And so first I was like, "How am I supposed with what space?" So
we live in New York.
Yeah. That's an interesting journey, just getting creative on how do you stay moving when you aren't able to do the kind of things you need to do to train as a Broadway athlete. So I've just gotten back to my yoga practice, and at some point I hope that there will be some kind of additional dance opportunities, or I'll just have to look at videos that are already pre-done, because some of those live videos are rough.
They're hard. They are really hard.
There's a delay.
Technology is not on our side. I mean, it's amazing that we're able to do what we're able to do, but for we're really noticing obviously a big void for the arts industry of, you know, making these things applicable to what we do. We're doing the best we can, but
Yeah, so finding ways to take care of ourselves and each other and get creative. Certainly, like I know I'm working to, I've written a couple of songs. Like, oh
oh
yeah.
my gosh, Alena.
Now I just have to figure out how to orchestrate them because of course they're like a project that require like many.
That's why I just always want to like, I'm in always in awe because I'm like, yeah, you were like this triple threat and you're now writing music. I'm like, get out. Just get out.
I wrote music back in college. It just was not as good. But still keep creating. It's important. So I hope everybody here that is watching, listening, taking part in this, just a reminder to stay creative, even if it's like getting a freaking coloring book and coloring in the lines. Or drawing. I drew a random dragon in a journal the other day. I was like, what am I going to draw? I don't know. Oh, this is a dragon. You know, just get creative in whatever ways, even if they don't seem like it's going to be some big thing that you're going to share, because that's the way we need to stay sane until until it's safe enough to come back and find these creative ways, whether it's writing your own songs or making some kind of Zoom series, who knows? And hopefully when, let's see, is it almost, yeah. Well, Jason is probably just landing now, but hopefully at some point when we get to, speak with him and other people, we'll get to hear more about the things that folks who are doing.
How it's looking as, like, because I know the film and TV they're doing things, as best they possibly can. I live specifically in an area of this country that just will not put a mask on, and is part of why we are slowing down, and it's infuriating, to be the quote unquote leading country in the world behind everyone else. It's just like madness, because there are so many industries that are able to get back to work and they've been able to figure out how to do so safely and blah, blah, blah. And our industry, I keep saying to people, they're like, well, we just need to figure out, they're talking about the audience experience.
What about us?
Like, literally, I'm like, I don't care how safe you make it for an audience. I was like, how do actors like do anything? Like, how do dressers take care of the wardrobe? How do actors kiss, interact, literally like hold each other?
All over each other.
How do you sweat all over? Exactly. I'm like, it's literally not. And if you've been in any New York theater, you can't put people 6 feet apart in dressing rooms. It's like not possible.
And it's not viable.
So it's like, and you can't, and then you can't do people. It's so funny. They're like, well, you're just gonna have to do smaller shows. And I was like, well, no one feels like when they go pay however much they pay for a ticket, they see a show that has 2 people, 4 people, 10 people. It's hard for them to feel like they've gotten their money's worth, because they haven't seen this big Broadway spectacle. If they've had to pay the same ticket price to go see Moulin Rouge or to go see Mrs. Doubtfire or to go see Phantom of the Opera, and then they pay that same ticket price to go see Urinetown, and they're like, where's the money? And it's like, some people like some people love those types of experiences, but my patrons have flat out said, we don't want to see the small shows. And it's like, okay, well, how do, anyway, so, we're all trying to figure this out, but I just don't see how we come back from this without a vaccine or some kind of medication that's going to say, okay, you have the coronavirus, but you're not going to die from it. Just take this Tamiflu, essentially, or whatever, and you'll be fine. So I know that we're in a big waiting game and everything, but whilst we wait, do you have if anyone has any questions, just a reminder, post them in the comments, because Alena will answer them before we head out. But do you have anything like moving into this new world? Yeah, right, that we don't know what this is going to be, but this like post-corona, hopefully post-corona world. What do you kind of like advice you want to impart on artists as they kind of are looking at this as a career path, or wanting to advance, if they're already in this as a career but wanting to advance themselves forward? What kind of tricks of the trade do you want to impart?
Sure. Well, I mean, I, along with most people, don't know what the heck is going to happen. But what I do know, and like some of the things that I have control over, that we have control over, are like what we do with our bodies, how we treat ourselves, our bodies and our minds. So right now, while we have this forced slowdown period, I'm doing things for my own health and wellness. And I'm like, oh, you know, there's this thing that I never really dealt with. Let me journal about it. You know, whatever it is. I am doing work with this somatic group. Somatic means of the body, like, which is interesting when you're supposed to do something of the body through the glass, if you will. But still investigating things for my own health and wellness, mental health, writing, drawing. You know, whether it's songs or poetry. I've been looking online for some teachers that I enjoy. Like there's Danielle Laporte, and at some point she had a week of part of her course, the desire map, where there was like a free week of that, and I did that. And so I like got to do little exercises that helped me excavate some things in my mind and focus on some ways that I wanted to feel in my life and my career. And some of those things might not seem related, but they really are. Because like I was talking about previously with the health and wellness piece, is that, well, one, as artists, our minds, our bodies, voices, this is what we have to share with the world. And we're, you know, a vessel of storytelling. So even though it's easy, and I've certainly gone through the ups and downs of, whoa, sanity. Wow, I'm sad today. All of this crap going on in the world. Oh, I feel some parts of joy. Oh, an hour later, I'm so sad. And just letting ourselves feel those crazy waves of human emotions that we really are not taught to express and explore. When we get into the theater, oh, wow, we have this vessel of being able to, through this character or that character, sometimes some of those dark, shadowy parts of ourselves, we get to explore only through characters, but not really actually as ourselves. And so I think it's really important to feel the crappy feelings and to really face and let ourselves, while we have this time, I think most of us have this time, not everybody, everybody's a little different. But while we have those times, taking the time to dive into those uncomfortable places within our minds, whether it be from something that happened. I mean, we all have a variety of physical, emotional traumas in our lives. So whether that be some kind of emotional trauma, physical trauma, dealing with that, or whether we're feeling the overall societal, cultural trauma of the way that, you know, our racism in the country and the social justice fights going on. There is a lot of that that's people have been feeling every day of their life, and some have not really had to deal with as much, but facing those things, taking the time to dive into that, be present with the moment, be present where am I at in this moment? Where can I be better? Where am I doing okay? And I think that is paramount as human being, because then who knows what story, you know, maybe writing a story, who knows what stories any of you or us, any of us could write that can inform of, you know, this time that we're going through, that might be a commentary on this time, that might help other people grow from this time. So just really facing ourselves, facing our stuff, that will then allow us to be, once we finally get back to being on stage, will make us more interesting on stage. Just being human.
Couldn't agree more in that we are all so focused on big picture things right now, whether it's, you know, the global health thing, you know, about, you know, with the pandemic, or the you know, obviously the big since June, Black Lives Matter, you know, movement of the systemic racism in our country and in our world, and dealing with these really big picture things. But because of that, we can tend to forget about diving into ourselves and to really do that work on how, not only, like, you know, like you said, like, how are we going to then, if we go and look within ourselves, then we can be not only better on stage, but better in life and as people, and taking the time to get that brain fog out, right? Eat those healthy fats, watch those documentaries, and, you know, improve as you're improving our health, our brains, then, you know, by the time we get to come back and work again, we'll be able to do so more efficiently. It's all, we have been given a awful gift of time. And again, like and I say awful in that, you know, it shouldn't come with people's lives and all of that, but we are, you know, all having to do a lot of work right now on ourselves, on our businesses, on everything. So I think that's a really beautiful bit of advice, Miss Elena, because yeah, it's what we should be doing right now. It's great work to be done. Are there any questions for this incredible artist? She's worked with many incredible people. She's an incredible person. There's lots of fun things that she could impart. But you know, we did because this class initially was going to be her and Jason together talking about their amazing experiences and taking Q&As. But we did a pretty good job, Elena, of kind of winging it. I think we did great. But yeah, this is our final week of live classes. We will be posting all the reruns. I know I'm going to miss seeing Brittany and Christy and Colden and all these people that I was getting to see so often. This is my last, actually I wasn't even supposed to be hosting this class today, but this is my last class until our Fantastical Friday. But this has been, yeah, such a 5 months of joy and incredible relationship building, and it's been a lot of fun. So Elena, I can't thank you enough for coming back for a third one. You did a dance class and you did 2 of these, so I love you with all my heart. And oh wait, any stories from Vegas? Were you with Bette Midler? Oh yes, I mean, I can't say they're not my stories to tell, but I love your journey on this, Elena.
That's a whole other, like, thestandbys.com.
Yeah, so she was in, talk about that real quick. Hello, why didn't we not touch on that? She's in a documentary called The Standbys. It's a brilliant documentary, and tell them about that, and then tell them a little bit about Bette Midler and what it was like being in that experience.
Yeah, do we have time? I don't know if somebody's after us, because we are just.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, no, we do.
Okay.
This is our last class of the day, so, you know.
Oh, right, great. Okay. So, let's see, Standbys. The Standbys, if you're not familiar with it, is a documentary that it follows 3 standbys. It was originally called At This Performance, based off of a concert that Stephen DeAngelis produces every year that allows understudies and standbys to come in. They sing a piece of their own song, and they sing something from one or whatever the roles that they're covering as an opportunity to shine. And so Stephanie Riggs directed and produced it. They had meetings, and then she created it into this film. And initially it was supposed to be, or it was going to be, a lot of these celebrities sharing different stories, but she thought it seemed like, too many talking heads, and she comes from a narrative background. So she actually created this story, having kind of like an ingenue, bright-eyed, this is how you see Broadway, which is through my eyes. And then somebody kind of in their middle of their story, which was Ben Crawford, who was going to be taking over for Brian Darcy James and Shrek. And then there was Merwin Ford, rest his soul, he died this year, so in March, which is sad. But then there was Merwin, who understudied and stood by for so many. It was kind of a professional standby in ways. So the Standbys follows the 3 of us and helps to educate people on what it is to be swing in a standby. And so that was, I certainly was not expecting as much personal information as as ended up being crafted into that film.
Is that available to stream anywhere, or do you just go to standbys.com?
I think it's on, actually, I don't even know if the standbys.com is, if they still have it up and running, but I think it's still on iTunes, maybe?
Oh, okay.
If not, it might be, gosh, of course, it's like, might be a little like convoluted to find it, but I think it might be on like,
Amazon Prime.
Maybe Amazon Prime. Check it out, maybe. I don't know. I've got the DVD.
Love it.
But in there, it does discuss some of my time with Bette Midler, and I was in the midst of my 5th production of Beehive: The 60s Musical, and I was doing that with the first and the 5th production were with the same director, Ray Kennedy. And the first one was at the Kennedy Center in DC, and the second one was at, where were we? Sanford, North Carolina or something? I don't know, there wasn't even a movie theater. I went to the gym a lot when I was doing that show, because that's like all there was to do. Other than, like we had our cast time and all that together. But I had gotten called by Justin Huff of Chelsea Casting, asking me to come in. And sometimes, if you live out of town or if you're working out of town, you can just come in for the callbacks. But this was not one of those times. I had to see her musical director, Bette Sussman, first. Like, that was just, you had to see her first and get through that first, or you couldn't come to the callback. It's like, yeah, I'm not sure, because I was the dance captain at this time. Some of our rehearsals revolved, our rehearsal schedule, like I was in charge of. It's like, I don't think I can make that work. So I initially turned it down, the audition. And then I was talking to my cousin Chris, and he was like, wait, what? What are you talking about? You have to go. But part of my thing was, I was doing these regional gigs, which sometimes are what, like maybe you make $200 or something. And I was like, well, if I go, I can't go to the callback. So one, I have to pay for a flight to the audition. Then two, a flight if I get a callback, But he's like, I don't care. If you get a callback, I'll pay for your flight. I was like, uncomfortable. Oh, okay. So I called them back and accepted the audition, and I went in and I auditioned for Bette Sussman and sang my songs, my contrasting songs, and she was on a special skills kick. So I remember her glasses. She wanted me. I have a random plethora of things in my special skills, and she asked me to burp on command, so I did. And then she wanted. Then I also have animal sounds in there, so she wanted an animal sound, so I did my squirrel. Ooh, my whistle tone. I haven't been singing as much. It's not quite on point.
The squirrel voice, because we went to school in Colorado, so we'd walk into class, and all of a sudden you just hear Alena like,
squirrel! Yeah. So my whistle tones haven't been used. I just realized that and trying to do it for you. Sing a little more than you may have. This is a note for myself. Sing a little more than you may have been doing during quarantine.
I need to do that.
So then I got a call back, and I went in to sing for Bette, and I sang this song that I've been doing, a cut of a pop song that I've been doing for a while.
Bette was at the first round of callbacks?
But I don't even know. I think this had been going on and off for a while.
Got it.
Casting, they were having a hard time finding what she wanted. So I went in, I sang my like R&B pop song, and she was kind of like, seemed okay, but she was like, do you have something less loud? So then I pulled out of my dreams, which is a completely different sound, out of my dreams instead of the,
Yeah.
So anyway, and her eyes lit up, and then we ended up having a round of dance, and I have pretty fine hair, and when I sweat, she is so stringy, and I had bought this hairpiece that really pretty much looked like my hair. It was like a half situation. I'd put my hair over it. Great. Gave me a lot of body. But the time that we went in, they wanted us to put the hair back so it wasn't in your face. And I'm like, oh, I don't know how this is going to work, but okay. So I have my hair piece tied back, and we go through some rounds of dancing. And in one of the rounds of dancing, they have maybe one more person than normal in the grouping that we had, and it was a really narrow room. So one girl's kind of kicking me, I'm kicking the other, but we're still kind of going through each other, doing the choreography. And we have this thing where we ball change, cross the feet, and do a head roll. And off my hairpiece went. I've got this ratty bun underneath. And I at some point pick it up and in my hand, just keep grooving along with my hairpiece. I think later that night, I sent a picture to the casting director of the hairpiece. I was like, I guess Mopsy wanted some attention. Here's her headshot. I booked the show originally as a swing. I was like, oh man,
right.
Okay, cool. But then a week later, got a call and was like, actually, we're completely starting from scratch. It's come back where you're still being considered for the regular. I'm like, really? Okay. So I had to go back yet again. I think at that point they paid for that and a hotel, which they don't always do. But I'd already, flown in for the audition and the callback. And Ray Kennedy, amazing, trusted me enough. And he had some Bob Mackie, funny, I later worked with Bob Mackie. He had some Bob Mackie beaded gowns and such that we wore in the show. And he let me take that with me to my final callback. So for one of the things, hip hop, I'm doing stuff in my kind of sweat, funky dance clothes. And we had a brief moment to go to the bathroom and get some water. And then I changed into the Bob Mackie thing. And then we did a Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. And so I rocked it out in this Bob Mackie beaded gown. And I booked that job. And so then, so I got to be a Harlette. We did a concert at the Met. I'd never been in the Metropolitan Opera House. And I got to see it for the first time from the stage, which was incredible.
Wow.
And, getting to perform with Bette Midler and, singing, having moments of singing backups to the Rose. I'm like, I'm on the stage at the Met with single tear. This is so cool. Oh my God, she's amazing. And then once the Vegas show came into play, something shifted around. I mean, it's kind of like her final concert, retirement concert.
Kind of
And
rock. Yeah.
yeah, and I think she just really wanted something that she was more familiar with, because two of us were new. And it made me a little better that I wasn't the only one, but who she tried to replace. But only one of the people couldn't come back, was locked in a contract, so one of us stayed. But then I ended up getting replaced by an old girl, which was really quite devastating at first, because the company was kind of some jokesters. I was like, wait, is this a joke? Okay. Yeah, so that was really rough. And my agent called and said, I've never had a team call and wonder about an artist. They don't want to lose you. They're hoping that you'll consider being swing. So that was really hard, going from being a harlot. And then I did decide to be a swing, which I was briefly for the Vegas situation. And you can learn all about the rest of that by watching the standbys on film. Yeah. So that was the auditions experience. Was to talk about one of the times that was one of the ones where you feel like you're jumping through hoops and you're, wait, okay, I'm going to be this. Wait, I'm going to be this. What?
When in doubt, bring a Bob Mackie gown.
Yeah, this business can get crazy. And even when you're on top of your game, there could be something that you have no idea about that, and something changes.
Yeah.
And it's often not personal. And sometimes, who knows, maybe it is, but you'll never know. So just have to continue trusting in yourself and cry when you need to, and then keep moving forward and express yourself and keep up those skills, keep moving and dancing or doing yoga in whatever space you have while we're still kind of locked inside our houses in ways.
Yeah. I'm so glad you asked that, Colden, because I forget about, even though like I remember that whole thing happening. I remember talking to you even when that was all going down, and what a roller coaster journey that whole thing was. I totally forgot to talk about that. So
yeah, I mean, after that, I really felt like, oh, well, if I can handle all of that emotional roller coaster, then I'll be ready for anything. And right after that, a couple months after that, I got to work with Tommy Tune which was incredible, in a musical called Turn of the Century that was at the Goodman Theater in Chicago. And oh my God, what a loving man. That process, like just the rehearsal process from one to the other, was night and day. Wow. So, and because, okay, I went through that experience, which was really emotionally really rough, but helped me understand that professionally, some things just are out of your control, even when you feel like you're doing everything well.
Did that have a lot of interaction with you guys, or did you just work with like the choreographer and the vocal director? And she did. I didn't know how hands-on she was with.
Yeah, it was a little back and forth. Okay, we're gonna learn this first, then we're gonna do it with that. Yeah, we worked with her. Yeah, we had fun with that.
That's cool.
And yeah, but the good thing about that is, of course, you have that on your resume, and then like, then that was one of my, that was actually one of my first like big credit that got people at least like, oh, okay, she's worked with Bette Midler, cool. That was, I'm grateful for that experience, and even just the credit that got people to take me, take more notice.
I mean, because it's insane. I mean, to have that on your resume is insane. I mean, like it's really cool. No matter what a roller coaster ride it was to have been a harlot, and there's only X amount of women that can say that they've done that, along with Katie Seagal. I mean, hello.
Melissa Manchester, I'm pretty sure.
Melissa Manchester, I believe, was one.
I think I'm remembering that properly. Yeah. It was quite a ride. I mean, how incredible to get to sing these iconic songs with the artist.
Yeah. That's
an incredible entertainer. Yeah, so that was
before we wrap up, are there any other questions? You should watch the standbys for sure. But yeah, are there any other questions or anything you want to impart, Miss Waters?
Hi, Gigi here. My Wi-Fi went down, and I think it cleared up. People had questions from earlier in our chat, but I think it disappeared because of me.
Oh.
But, nobody was paying attention to me, so I had to figure out a way to bust in. So if you do have any questions, if you have those questions, you don't see them in the chat, if you would like to put them right back in there, we could get that before we go. Yes, I know.
Yeah,
I still have them.
Yeah, I have them too.
Do you have them? Okay, I don't.
At like 2:05. Yeah, we actually answered.
Did you get to them? Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Thanks, Jeej.
You got it, Tej.
Thanks. But yeah, we're definitely we're so thankful, Alena. We love you, and if there's no other questions, we will let this amazing woman try to figure out how to do yoga in her cube in New York.
I got that down. It's the dancing.
The dancing. That's right. That's right.
Other than the, like step, touch. Ooh.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
no.
Yes. And because I know you talk to Veasey all the time. Please tell him how much I love him, and I hope he traveled safe. And yeah, we'll definitely have to do another convo on what it was like to do TV and film in the midst of COVID craziness. Because we will be doing like one-off classes every once in a while, and like we're gonna do our Fantastical Fridays and stuff. We're just not keeping to a strict schedule anymore, so we'll have to maybe schedule another time with y'all. So anyway,
and if you're not yet familiar with it, Jason was a part of the Pulitzer Prize winning musical A Strange Loop, and that music by Michael R. Jackson, check it out. You can buy that music or stream. You probably can stream it on Spotify or something.
yeah.
If you haven't gotten familiar, listen to that. It's intense. It just
Amazing. It's intense.
A great time to listen to a bunch of musical theater and such that we haven't had time to listen to previously.
Yes, now is the time to broaden those the musical theater library for sure. I miss you guys so much. I love you all. I'm so thankful. We'll be obviously seeing y'all hopefully soon. And Alena, again, I love you so much. You always make me laugh. You always like fill my heart with all the joys all the time. So it's always amazing to see your face. And I can't wait to come see you in Mrs. Doubtfire when we all come back from this. I will be there.
I can't wait. Thank you for coming. It's been fun to share with you today, and continue to keep your creativity flowing. And yes, until we all meet again, have a beautiful, beautiful day.
Yes, ma'am. Bye, everyone. Have a beautiful day. We'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Alena.